WhatsApp or anywhere on the Rosa Digital platform. You can get to that on the MINSA websites. There was a meeting with ministers from the region in a virtual way to evaluate the progress that the various countries have in the application of biosafety guidelines for land transportation in Central America, and Panama was represented by the Deputy Minister of Health, Yvette Berrio. Each country presented the balance of what it has developed in relation to transportation based on the biosafety guidelines established by the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization regarding to the mitigation and control plan of COVID-19. In its participation, Panama emphasized that it has very well developed controls at the border level, respecting the biosecurity and protection of carriers, for which the Paso Canoas Health Center has been strengthened, and it will continue to do so. It will test in an expedited manner, taking into account the necessary traceability measures. The countries that participated were Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Belize, and the Dominican Republic. As far as the epidemiological report goes, as of yesterday, 11,394,076 people have recovered worldwide. That's a little bit of good news, right? There was almost 19 million accumulated positive cases and 708,000 deaths. The fatality rate worldwide is 3.8. And I'll tell you why I told you that here in just a second. For today in Panama, for yesterday rather, at the close of the day, Thursday, August 6th, we have 45,658 people who have already recovered from COVID-19. There were 1,187 new positive cases for a cumulative total of 71,418. To date, 3,506 tests have been applied. That was yesterday, for a positivity rate of 34%, and 21 new deaths have been registered, totaling 1,574. But keep in mind, remember, the worldwide fatality rate is 3.5. Panama, we are at 2.2%. So what we're doing is working. Any information you want, though, about COVID-19 will be available on the MINSA website at minsa.gov.pa or yomiinformopanama.pma.org. So anyway, that's the news for today. As we said earlier when we started the show, we're going to be talking with Joni Fierstein, Bev Tyler, and Char Lintz about how to be prepared in Boquete for life and death. Welcome to the show, ladies. Not a problem. Dying in Boquete, dying in Panama. You know, this, as we know, we've talked about this, Joni, extensively. And you've been to my house with a group of my friends and gave a presentation, which was absolutely wonderful. It was very informative, and there were so many things that I had taken for granted because, well, you figure you die one way in one place, it's going to be pretty much the same. But you have educated all of us in my group. There was, I think, 12 of us about the differences. So first, before we start, I want to give you a brief rundown on what each of these wonderful people here do. Bev's area, you are the one. You are the contact point, correct? Right? You're the contact point.
Yes.
And you know all about all of this. So when people call you for things, everything from, hey, I need some information, to I need some maybe little medical goods, you do that too?
Yes, absolutely.
Health and Hospice has been on the show several times, and what you guys do is just phenomenal here. It's fantastic. Joni's area is the what and whys, and we're gonna actually let you explain this. I'm just giving you a brief rundown. And Char's area is a practical guide for the final journey. So let's start with Joni. Okay. Joni, why would somebody need this guide? And by the way, this booklet is a professionally produced, bound booklet. You can get them at mailboxes, etc. They're only $10. And this is a very, very comprehensive guide on the what's, whys, hows. Forms are in here, instructions on how to fill them out. And I read through this twice, and this is fantastic. But tell us, Joni, why? Why would we need this?
Well, we're not only talking about death today.
Right.
Death is a hard thing to talk about, especially when it's our own.
Yeah.
But it's like we put it in a box and lock it up, and we put it in the back of our closet, but now it's time to bring it out because we're living in a foreign country.
Sure.
And the medical system here does not operate the same way as our passport country. So you have to know the laws, the regulations of the country. Most of us don't have family here.
That's right.
Most of us are adults. We have partners or whatever, or singles. There's a lot of singles here.
And a lot of us are retirement age or older.
Exactly, exactly. And so we don't have family here, so we depend on each other.
Yes,
The
absolutely.
community becomes our family, and as you know, Al, and all of us know, we really stick together here.
Absolutely.
We cover each other, and
Yes.
you know from your last hospital stay.
Yes,
how
the community
important-
really, this is a very generous community, I will tell you that.
Exactly. And when you live overseas, there's a lot of cultural stresses anyways. And you cannot eliminate all of them, but you can here. There are some things you can do, and that's why this being prepared is so important for you. It is geared to expats, but it's not exclusively for expats, because we have all the contact information for ambulances, the clinics, the doctors, the hospitals in David. We even have funeral homes in there that are recommended.
That's important stuff.
It's actually important, because if you don't have a plan, you become action paralyzed when a crisis happens. Now, this is for residents, but as well as people that are snowbirds that come here for a few months.
Sure.
And even visitors, because you see, death follows you wherever you
It
go.
does.
Has no boundaries.
It does not.
You can be visiting here for 2 weeks and have a car accident or a medical crisis, or even
We all know have heard stories about people. One gentleman was here for 2 weeks, died in a car accident.
Yes.
A friend of mine just dropped dead
Yes.
out of nowhere, just had an aneurysm, and had none of this. And the family nobody knew what to do.
Well, that's why being prepared, and this guide is so important, because it gives you an action plan and it gives you peace of mind. Your family will have peace of mind if they know what you want, if everything is drawn up legally. Excuse me. In this guide, we also talk about the durable power of attorney, living wills, and Shar is going to talk more about that. But people think they have all their legal documents from the U.S., but they're not. Al, they're not valid here, because they need to be in the language of the country. Your buddies and the people that will make decisions for you if you are unable to make a decision, that has to be notarized.
So to be clear, if you come down here with a will or a living will or a medical directive or powers of attorney that you have taken the time to prepare for yourself while living in the States, that's pretty much out the window.
Correct, but it gives you a good starting point.
Okay.
You find yourself a good attorney that can draw up the legal papers, have them notarized, and this type of thing. So you want to put your affairs in order by making up these documents, these legal documents. You want to give you want to leave a legacy to your family of peace. I wanted to say that sometimes you just don't know what to do, but you have to leave your family a peace of mind. And so you deal with these issues now. This is all that head stuff, so that if something happens, your family knows. You don't want to leave your family a mess. You want to be able to leave them directives. You need your neighbors to know things about you and to check on you.
One of the things that you had instructed us to do, and all of this is in this booklet, by the way. And by the way, mailboxes, etc., $10. You really need to go and get one of these.
They're almost out too.
So don't waste your time. Hurry up. Is to keep a booklet with all of this stuff in a place in your home where your buddies, and we'll talk about buddies here in a minute, know where it is, so nobody's got to go rifle through your house and look in closets and drawers and under the bed to try to find all your documents. Right?
Well, I wanted to. That was the next point. That this booklet guide will help you establish and create what we call the important notebook, the important information notebook. Everything is in there. And we actually tell you what needs to be in there. For instance, copies of your passport page, your driver's license from the States or from wherever you are, and here, identification, things like that. Your statement of desires, which is also known as your living will. Everything needs to be in that book so that when someone comes into your house, they know where to go, where to find things, and everything is there in that one notebook. In one place. And like I said, this gives peace of mind to your family, whether your family's abroad or where. I'm sure they're concerned about you living in a foreign country. So, thank you.
The first question I ask is, who are you hiding from?
But anyway, so you make a plan, and then you go ahead, and this is where the living in Boquete comes in. After you got a plan for dying and what to do in a critical situation, or even a simple like diabetes or something, you need a doctor here. Many people tell me, oh, I don't go to the doctor, I don't need a doctor, but you really do. Do I have a minute to tell you about why you need a doctor?
Well, sure.
A doctor, number one, has to sign your physician's certificate of death, but a doctor also knows your medications, they know your medical history. If you need help, they're going to be a friendly face. If you're in the hospital, you want someone you know coming there, maybe answering questions for you. It's important to have a relationship with a doctor. If nothing else, establish a relationship with one of our doctors. We have good doctors here in Boquete. Their names are listed in the guide, and that's an important thing.
For your one of your buddies to make a phone call. If they check up on you, they need to have someone that they can contact that knows pretty much everything about you. Right?
Exactly. So just get that established. If you never go again, fine. But again, we're always
well, you
talking
should
about
be going to the doctor, get checkups, and
Yes.
But you know what now? A lot of people have told me, oh, we don't go to the doctor. I don't know any doctors here. Then you end up in the hospital with a broken leg or some unforeseen circumstance. You know, I know my husband and I lived in the Philippines as missionaries for 16 years. He got smashed in the face with a baseball, and he had to have surgery on his nose. And
did you teach him how to duck after that?
I tell you, no, he doesn't pick up a baseball glove anymore, unless I don't know about it. But anyways, he had a heart attack in the recovery room, and we had this surgery in Manila, and it helped that we had a plan of action. You want to have a plan of action. That's what we're talking about here, without fear.
Speaking of plans, I want to jump over to Shar. I know that in our passport countries, which for a lot of us is North America, Canada, the States, what have you, there's basically, you have basic forms, right? We have a basic a will. We have basic different types of communication documents that we usually keep. And from what I understand, there are several different types of forms here, different types of wills, different jobs, different powers of attorney. Can you tell us something about the different types of documents that are here?
Yeah, it's still very similar to what's in the United States. Your first one is if you have property here, just like in the United States, you need a will. Who are you going to leave this to? Your will in the United States is not legal here. It's just a piece of paper.
So property like real estate, vehicles.
Yes, so if you have a home here, if you have a car here that you want someone in your family or a friend to have if you die, then you need a legal will here.
Okay.
Then there is the living will. In medicine, for what you want. If you're in a incapacitated situation and it looks like there is no hope of recovery, what do you want done? Do you want them to continue giving you tube feedings, IVs, ventilators, that kind of thing? And we've got one page in here to give you some ideas of what to think about and what to include in that living will. When I went to my attorney, she says, oh, I've already got one. Let me give you what I have and see if you like this or see if you want to add or change anything. And actually what she had was exactly what I want, because when I gave her mine, she says, well, let me give you what I got already written up.
Yeah.
And so what she had was perfect.
That's another important reason to have not only a doctor, but to have a relationship.
And your living will, you need to discuss with your physician here and give them a copy, so that, again, you've got another advocate in the hospital for you. So if you don't want to be ventilated or put on a ventilator or breathing machine, if you don't want chemotherapy, if you don't want surgery, then this doctor, or if you do want this, your doctor knows. So he or she will advocate for you.
Is that similar to the DNR, the Do Not Resuscitate Estates?
Yes, that is a part of your living will.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
that is a part of your living will. Then you've got the third form is your durable power of attorney for health care.
Oh, okay.
Who is going, if you're incapacitated, if you're on a breathing machine in the hospital, who's going to make these decisions? Who is going to discuss with the doctor, what you wanted, what you don't want? So a legal form here is your durable power of attorney for health care. And all of these need to be done by an attorney here. And it's actually the living will that has to be notarized here. also.
Okay, so the durable power of attorney allows gives authorization to your lawyer, to your attorney, to talk about your condition and to make changes.
Not your attorney so much, but a friend of yours or a family member.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It has
Someone
to be, but
that
it
you
has
trust.
to be drawn up by an attorney.
Yes, it has to be drawn up by an attorney, but it's someone you trust and you know well and you have discussed all this with. Because this is the other thing, you can't just make up a durable power of attorney and appoint your son or your daughter, say, as your durable power of attorney without discussing what you want. Because they may go, well, no, I want to do everything for you. I always
Sure.
want everything done. And if that's not your wishes, you really need to talk to them about it, and you really need to make what you want clear, and your desires. That you understand. You want me here forever,
Yeah.
but I can't be here forever.
Yeah.
That's
and
what we call the buddy.
Right,
A
I
buddy,
was
which
just
is your
gonna
health
ask
you.
advocate, and we can talk about how you choose a buddy here, because sometimes your family can't get over here in time, and so you have a
Especially
local.
now. With
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
There's your prime example.
yeah.
But, okay, now answer me this, and then I want to talk about getting help. When you need it. So to make it clear, even if you are a spouse, without that form, you can't walk into the hospital and start saying, okay, this is what I want from my husband, or this is what I want from my wife, without that durable power of attorney.
Yeah, because here there's even legal definitions of marriage, and marriage
Yeah.
in the United States wasn't legal. And
Yeah, I had someone on the show a while back talking about that, and the response that I got from my listeners was, what do you mean my marriage isn't recognized here?
yeah,
It's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know. And as good as this booklet is, and it is a very good booklet, by the way, mailboxes, etc., $10, go get one, they're almost running out. The process of living, being prepared, much as it is, being prepared for life and death, while we are still alive, I'd like to talk a little bit about what role the Boquete Health and Hospice plays for those of us who are still here and have medical conditions. I know that some friends of mine have benefited with wheelchairs and hospital beds and whatnot. So I'd like to talk to Bev about what the process is if we find ourselves in a situation where we're not at death's door, but we've lost our mobility. We've lost, our capacity to move about, to get things done in our home. What does Boquete Health and Hospice provide? And since you're the contact point, you're going to answer the phone, or you're going to get the
Yeah,
emails.
that's right.
Give us a little rundown on that aspect of it.
We have several programs to start with, so that you know what we do generally when we call. When you call, we do provide end-of-life care, and that is supportive volunteers. We have retired nurses that will act as team leaders to coordinate things and make sure that your questions are answered, and that you are given comfort and support. We also have what we call health support, and that's short-term care for people who have had illnesses or perhaps an accident. Say a person was in the hospital, had surgery, they go home. They may live alone, or they may have a partner at home who isn't able to take care of them, in which case we would come in for probably 2 weeks, maybe a little longer, and provide the care that you need, or coordinate with other agencies for what you need. And we provide a lot of things. We have durable medical equipment, a wide variety of equipment, hospital beds, wheelchairs, walkers, bedside commodes, shower benches, it just goes on and on.
Wow, yeah.
It's very rare that we get a call from somebody asking for durable medical equipment that we don't have. And we sometimes have disposable things too, depending on what people have donated to us, because we get a lot of donations. The only time we might not have something is if it's out on loan, in which case, depending on the priority, I mean, if your need is very great, we may start calling to get equipment back from people who have it. And
Sure.
always people who are in the stages of dying take the top priority. Our loans are generally 1 to 3 months. It's rare that they're over that, but if someone is dying, then there isn't any limit. They keep the equipment for as long as they need it.
Well, that's actually it's a very comforting thing to know that's here, because when I got here, obviously, my family was concerned because my health isn't very good, and there was always the well, what about questions. My son would say, well, what about if you fall, because I'm a fall risk, and you need you don't have the things that if you have a catastrophic problem where you need a hospital bed, or you need now a seat for your shower, or you need what are you going to do? And obviously when I first got here, I had no idea that Boquete Health and Hospice even existed, and my wife and I had conversations about that. When we got here, we were real short on cash, and there was no money to get any of this stuff if we needed. And as I've time has gone by, and I've met people, and I've gotten into several groups here, that question still comes up. We all know people who have broken their legs, who've gotten into car accidents, have had falls, and several friends of mine, like I said earlier, have benefited from Boquete Health and Hospital. Where do you get a wheelchair? There's no one in town that sells wheelchairs.
And it's all free.
Yeah.
We work on donations and volunteers.
Yeah. And if the need for the equipment is permanent, if it really is going to be long-term, then we don't do that. But it could be very useful if you need an oxygen concentrator, for example, to borrow ours until things settle down, until you're sure that you actually do need it. Or the same thing is true of walkers. You might buy a walker and then decide that no, this isn't the walker I need, and have to buy another walker. So we eliminate that because we have 4 different types of walkers, just for example. And you can use ours and determine what it is you need, and then if this is an ongoing problem, then you buy your own.
And if somebody does buy a walker and it's not the right one, they should donate it to Boquete Health.
Mostly they do. It's just wonderful. This community is very generous in that way.
Absolutely, it is. And the thing, again, another comforting thing, in addition to just knowing that that your organization is here, is the fact that the money really isn't an obstacle to getting the equipment or the care that you need. We have some very generous and very, very wealthy people that live here, and I'm very thankful for that, because they are very generous. My wife and I have been on the receiving end of that. But there's also a lot of us here living on a very fixed income, just on Social Security, maybe an annuity here and there. But living in Boquete is not like living in the interior. It costs money to live here, and there's not a lot of extra. And when a doctor tells you, okay, well, you need this piece of equipment, and it's $4,500, it might as well be $45 million. And to know that, well, Boquete Health and Hospice is here to hopefully, and most of the time can provide that. And then I want to ask you about that, the end of life care, because the durable medical goods are very important. I have my own things that I use around my house. What encompasses the end of life care that you provide? Anyone can answer this, that you provide.
When I get a call, I try to determine over the phone if the person meets our criteria, which are basically 3. They need to have a terminal diagnosis. They need to have a doctor who is overseeing their care and knows them, and they need to have a caregiver. So that's somebody who's available to us 24/7 and that's the person that we're going to work through, because initially we're dealing with the client and talking to them, and they're making the decisions, and as they get closer to death, they're not able to, and so we're working with the caregiver.
Yeah, that doesn't have to be a spouse. That could be anyone that person says, hey, this is my neighbor, he or she's been taking care of me.
Yes.
You can talk to them. All right.
Yes,
okay,
we prefer that they live in the final stages, but even that isn't essential if there's nursing staff hired, or I certainly meet people who don't meet those criteria. Now the diagnosis is essential, but they may not have a doctor, so we'll work to get them a doctor.
Yeah.
they may not have a caregiver, but only once in 12 years of doing this have I met somebody who actually could not come up with someone who could come and do the job of caregiver.
Yeah.
So we work with it. Then having done that, I do an assessment I'm a retired nurse, do an assessment of what I think the person needs. And then having done that, we have a form to fill out and things like that. I tell them that a team leader will visit them, and that's going to be somebody with medical background, usually a nurse, with specific end-of-life experience and education. So they will come in and do another assessment that's going to be more detailed, and then they will provide whatever's necessary, and often that is a team of volunteers who will come in and meet whatever. We just go into the home, do an assessment, and do whatever needs to be done. So that could be walking the dog, that could be picking up prescriptions, it could be sitting at the bedside. And very different people have different needs. I visit Panamanians. They always have almost always, not always, but they usually have a big family. We would provide meals for the caregivers. They don't need that. We would provide end-of-life information about funeral homes, that kind of thing. Often they don't need that, but they always need equipment.
Sure. Well,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
Continue. And I did want to ask you this, and I'm sure that all of you have a little bit of this information, but since I'm understanding you're the historian,
Been here longest,
been
yes.
here longest. How did this start? And it's interesting to me to know, well, what brought this on? How did this? You saw a need. I mean, give us a brief history of it.
We started in 2008. Our founding members, John and Babby Earl, had done many years of hospice volunteering in the States and realized, having lived here for a while, that there was a real need for that here. Particularly when people were here just with a partner, usually possibly not speaking the language and having no idea of the healthcare system and how to navigate these things. And so it started with that, but they did a lot of work before 2008. 2008, we had our first three-day volunteer training course, and we took our first clients. And at that point, for the first year, we only took English-speaking people because we had to get our own act together.
Sure, yeah.
But since then, we've grown hugely, and we have a very strong translator team. And for that reason, we can support Panamanians, and the main way we do that is through equipment loan, but we can do anything that we do for Panamanians.
Sure.
It's just their needs are different, usually.
Well, it's very important that people understand this isn't just for expats.
Right.
And a lot of the groups here, well, we had your husband, Joni Will, on the show with the Boquete Veteran Outreach. And we constantly have to remind people it's not just for veterans of the United States or Canada, it's for everybody. So this organization here, Boquete Health and Hospice, isn't just strictly for expats. You can serve the Panamanian community as well.
So that's we take it for granted when we move here that they have hospice, that they have things like that, but they don't have hospice care like they would in our passport countries. They don't have blood banks. Boquete Health and Hospice established a blood bank last year for the first time, and those are things that we don't have here, and that's different that we need to understand.
Now, I understand, and I believe, Shar, you can speak to this. When somebody passes away in the United States, there's a specific person who signs a death certificate, and I know that things don't work quite that way here in several different areas, and I know that you can emphasize on being prepared in advance and the different terms and terminology. So if you would give us a brief rundown of the distances of what maybe we would be used to in our passport countries as opposed to how that process goes here.
Yeah, it is different. My father died last November, and we knew he was going down, and I got prepared. I got out the material that we had before this book, and that was when Joni called me and said, we're revising this. I said, oh, no. because I really had to
Yeah.
go, this page had number 1, and then down here was step number 2, and then 2 pages over was step number 3, and
Yeah.
it was hard to put it together. But for me, I like list. I like concrete things.
Yes.
So yes, when someone dies here, that's number 1. That's why it's important to have your physician, because that's who you call first. They have to come out and do a physician certificate of death.
Before the police.
Yeah, well, if it's an expected death, you don't need to call the police.
Right. Okay.
If it's an unexpected death, someone fell off a ladder and died,
Sure,
or
sure.
you found someone in bed dead, then
That happens,
and you weren't,
sure.
yeah, and it happens. Then yes, you need to call the police. But if it's an expected death, you call your physician first. They come out and do a certificate, and in here we have a physician certificate of death. It has all the information that the physician needs. So when Dad died and the physician came to the house, he said, "Oh, everything," because he started asking me questions, and I says, "Oh, I think you need this information," and I pulled out that sheet, and he said, "Oh, this is great." So he just started copying everything on the sheet onto his form, and I think possibly every physician may have their own different form, but all the information was there. You didn't have to ask me one question after that. Then that's a little bit different from the death certificate.
Okay.
The death certificate is the formal certificate from Panama that you actually, same kind of thing you get from the United States, that your bank wants, that the insurance company wants, that any legal entity needs a death certificate. You go to the tribunal the day after or 2 days after the death, and you get a number of certificates of death. I got 10 of them. We recommend at least a minimum of 5, because again, your bank wants one, another legal entity wants one, your insurance company, whoever needs a copy of this death certificate. So you call the physician, they come up, pronounce the patient. That's where you need some cash on hand, because unfortunately here in Panama, physicians charge anywhere from $250 to $500 for that service.
Sure. Okay. Well, yeah, and I remember from Joni, from your presentation, that the probably a good amount, or a recommended amount of money to have on hand is $2,000, right?
We kind of revised that. So
yeah, we used to say that because you need at least $1,000 to $2,000 for the funeral home. But if you prepare ahead of time, and most of these funeral homes have prepaid plans, you can go to the funeral home and say, well, what will it cost for this, this, and this, or I want this, this, and this,
Sure.
and you can pay them ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So you don't need that amount of cash in hand. So what you need on hand is maybe up to $500,
Okay.
because you need, and again, you can talk to your physician. But again, on the day Dad died, I had 5 phone numbers, and I couldn't get a hold of my physician,
gosh,
or his physician, or my physician. So I called another physician in town who came up and signed and did the certificate of death.
And some funeral homes takes credit cards,
Yes.
Sure.
and you don't have to necessarily have a prepayment plan, but that's what we emphasize in the book. You need to have an idea ahead of time. Where's your body going? How do we repatriate the body, the
Sure,
ashes?
if
That's
that's
where
what
you
you
need
want,
your
yeah.
death certificates as well. But
Yeah.
you
Well, I
need to
guess
know.
another advantage of that would be, if you did go to one of the funeral homes, and there are some in this book, you can say, all right, this is what I want, and they'll say, all right, this is going to cost you $1,000. Well, you can put that money aside, because a lot of people don't have $2,000 laying around. I know I don't. But you can say, okay, I'm going to give you $200 a month, and
That's right, and they
hopefully
will do that. They will
you're
do
still around before that, and then you have that already taken care of. So that's actually
Yeah.
a very responsible thing to do.
But you don't wait to the last minute. That's our whole thing, is that sometimes we wait to the last minute. We don't know what funeral home to go to. What do we do?
Yeah.
And then we're action paralyzed. We don't know what to do. We're all stressed out, and it makes it more difficult than it already
Well,
is.
one of the good things about this book, and like I said, I was impressed with what you brought last year. all the forms and everything that you gave us, but I do understand, that it really, once I got everything to my house, it wasn't really in order. All the information was there; it was
Yes,
fantastic,
that's right.
but it wasn't in an order that I was comfortable with. This book, and even if you just look through the, and I'm going to take a scan of just the contents page, and I'm going to post it
Excellent,
when I
thank
do
you.
my after every show. I do a post-production promo. But you've got introduction, first steps, forms, all the forms, buddy contact. I want to talk a little bit about that. Contact numbers, a practical guide for the final journey, other services offered, and there's graphics in here, little flow charts, and the 5 wishes. I love this one here. It's just find an attorney, choose a person, create. Everything is laid out to where even if you're not a terribly organized person, because not everyone's terribly organized. You ask my wife about that. This basically
Yes.
is formatted in a way that anybody, if they just look, and it's all in order too. Everything is from A to Z.
That's right.
Joni, you mentioned earlier, as we know, a lot of us don't have family here, unless we've come down, with the spouse. There's very few people that have come down with entire families. And one of the first things I did after your presentation was, the very first thing I did is to get the buddy system set up. Tell us a little bit about that, how that works, and why that is so important.
Okay, first of all, I have to thank Jeannie Vidal, who was our technical writer, and she just organized everything. She knows how to do that, and she put that index in the definitions and the table of contents. She's made it very organized. We thank Jeannie. We also have in here about how to choose a buddy. A buddy is going to be someone, and usually it's your spouse if you get along with them. And
So who do you have?
I take the Fifth Amendment. No. But and then you choose friends, which is somewhat awkward here because these aren't lifelong friends. It's not like we went to high school with anybody here, So these are people that you're in groups with or whatever that you trust, because you're going to be giving them a lot of private information. For instance, if you have money in the house, your buddy would, number one, be authorized and notarized by an attorney, and this type of thing. But they need to know where the key is for your house.
Sure,
Remember, we talked about how they're going to get in your house.
Yeah.
They need to know your family to call. We have an emergency form for refrigerators. So
Yes,
anybody
I
that
saw the
comes into your
refrigerator
house,
form,
it's
yeah.
the refrigerator form. Because when you're in a crisis, though, you just can't figure out you can't even think straight, and that's why you
mentioned action paralyzed.
and that's why you call a friend when someone dies to help you drive to the tribunal and the funeral home, because But your buddy is someone you're going to trust, and they will know things about you. For instance, well, us, Al, but if someone drops over, you don't know the family to call.
Sure,
you
yeah.
call the daughter. Well, they haven't talked to their father for 6 years,
yeah.
And stuff like that. So they need to know a lot of things about you. They also need to have a copy of your durable power of attorney. You're going to give them that private information. You're going to give them your 5 wishes or your living will of how you want to be treated, and you expect them to honor. Not everyone wants to be kept on life support, but as you know, it's the mandate of doctors to keep you alive, and
Sure.
if you think differently, you need to specify. And what's wonderful is with your buddy and with your family, you discuss things so they exactly know what you want and what you don't want. And so there's no question when that time comes.
They also need other personal information like bank accounts and whatnot.
Well, someone has to know your passwords.
Yeah.
Now, that may not be your buddy here, maybe it's your family, but your buddy needs to know how to call your family and, things like that. There are things that we don't even think about, and that's all listed in the book as well, to help you choose that buddy.
And it's everyone should have at least one, but if you want 2 people to have it,
If they're out of town, we have a couple, and if they're both out of town, then I have a third one besides my husband, and this type of thing. We also call that buddy. We call it buddy, but it's your health advocate.
Okay.
I think we had another name for it too.
Well, no, that's a
something
good
else.
point with
It's a
that
health advocate.
with that third person, because heaven forbid you're in the car with your spouse and they're your buddy, and there's a car accident and both of you die.
Exactly.
And, that's people don't think about that.
Well, we don't think about a lot of things, and that's why if you're going to live in a foreign country, you made that choice.
Sure.
To live here, visit here, or whatever reason you're here. You made that choice to be away from your passport country. And it's a personal responsibility that you have to make sure everything is in order, because you're not in a familiar place anymore.
Now, we want to, and you made this very clear, and thank you for that. When we were talking earlier before the show, that Boquete Health and Hospice is not involved in any of the response teams or any of that to do with our pandemic. Because people are going to ask me,
That's right.
you know, what do they do? What are they doing? You know, with COVID-19 and all that. And being is that you have the words health and hospice in your name, please be very clear with our listeners how or how not you're involved with this.
Basically, we're not. That's the bottom line. We do still loan equipment, or any activities that involve going into people's houses we've had to stop. But I really would encourage people to call if you have a question about what we do and whether we're still doing it during COVID-19 and the lockdown, because we can provide information over the phone, and we can certainly let you know what we are doing and what we're not. And that phone number is 6781-9250. I also would like to encourage people to look at our website, boquetehealth.org, because everything about what we do is very clearly outlined on the website, including that phone number, which is 6781-9250.
And I will be providing in my post broadcast promotion all those phone numbers, and maybe I'll put a copy of
That's wonderful.
the content. This is really, I've got to tell you, and as I've said, I can't say enough how important it is to be prepared, even for things that might not be life-threatening. It's always good to be prepared, but sometimes you can't be prepared enough. I know that with the case of my family, when I went to see my doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh, you have cancer." Well, that's the last thing you want to hear. And then when they say you need it operated on immediately, well, you may have some things ready, but you might not have some things ready. And in addition to and I've had friends here who've had similar things, and it's really a comfort to know that there's someone you can call. Not just for the durable medical equipment, but sometimes you have questions.
Yes.
And you don't know. I mean, you have your buddies and you have your friends, and you go, well, what do I do? Well, I don't know. I've never had cancer before. I've never broken a bone before. You are the point of contact, Bev, and people need that phone number.
And I may not know the answer, but hopefully I can point people in the right direction to someone who does know.
Yeah, and that's, like I said, that's really important, because as Joni mentioned, we tend to have the what do you call it?
Action paralyzed.
Action paralyzed. Yeah, which I like that. I like that phrase better than,
That comes from
are you
kidnapping.
confused?
That comes from kidnapping.
Does it?
What we learned in the Philippines about being kidnapped, Jess.
Yeah.
So you better have a plan to do what am I going to do? How am I going to do that? But it gives you peace of mind. That's really not only legally and bringing you into the legalities of things, but it really gives you peace of mind. And then you go and you live it up. You have a wonderful time. We're living almost in paradise, and you really will feel much better. It's very hard to deal with what I found. People have a really hard time discussing this. It's like out of our.
Well, nobody wants to talk about, I mean, you're talking about your own mortality. People are very uncomfortable. It's never going to happen to me, especially if you're younger. You don't want to think about that.
Yeah, no age. And the wonderful thing that Shar has done also, she's defined terms. Like, why do you want to be fed if you're in end of life? Do you want tube feeding? Do you want CPR? Do you want to be intubated? And those things, most of us don't understand. I'm not a nurse or a medical person, but if you're a medical person, you understand the parameters. Do you feed someone when they're at the end of life? You think you should, but read the definitions. Maybe you shouldn't.
Well, and if you don't know what these things mean, because we've heard them. You know, we've heard things like being on a ventilator. We've heard things about being put on life support. We've heard things about feeding tubes. But a lot of us, you know, we've got that from TV shows, right? We don't know what's involved in being intubated, what's involved in being on a feeding tube.
That's right.
I learned a lot from a very, very good close friend of mine in the States who has throat cancer.
Oh.
And he's had his whole larynx removed and everything, and he's got feeding tubes and bags and all kinds of things. And when I went last Christmas to see him, through his little texting voice thing, explained to me what's involved in all of this. And you know, I like to think I have a clue about a lot of things in this world, but I had no idea what was involved and what's the process of all this. So again, if you don't know, you should know, and there's a lot of good information in here, and you can always call Beth and ask, and if she doesn't know the answer, you'll feel pretty confident you'll find someone to answer that question.
And that's our personal responsibility here. It's our choice. You have to make a choice what you're going to do.
All right, well, we got about 5 minutes left, so I want to give each of you a couple of minutes to recap on what you do for this program for Boquete Health and Hospice. We can start with let's start with Beth.
Okay, I carry the hospice phone. I have it with me most of the time. We answer it. We had to cut down because we were getting calls at crazy hours. So we're not an emergency service. We answer the phone Monday to Friday, 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon, and from 9 to 1 on Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm here to answer your questions and triage the issues and give you information about our organization and sometimes advice, or sometimes there's a problem that we can talk through together, and sometimes I will give you a link to someone else who can better answer your questions.
All right. And Shar?
Yeah, I was responsible for most of the information toward the end of the book. What to do on the day of death, steps on the next business day, what you need to do to complete all the paperwork and the legalities. Actually, who to notify of a death. Who do you call? You know, other than your best friend or your buddy person here, you know, who else do you need to call to notify them of the death? And I wrote the portion about understanding the medical terms, because you really need to understand what it's like to starve to death, what it's like to be on a ventilator, you know, breathing through a straw. So I tried to make those as descriptive as I could so you could make better decisions for yourself.
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand, like I just said, what's that involved. Joni, what do you do?
Besides talk, no.
That's why I saved you for last, because I figured you know.
Yeah, but with the help of many others, you know, I tried to revise the book and put some order to it. But we stand on the shoulders of people like Betty Landis, Linda Hart, Nikki Steele, that began the Being Prepared. And they would have seminars and workshops, which we have not been able to have since we did the book. Maybe in the future we will. However, we feel, and we have gotten comments, that if you have this book, it answers all your questions.
Yeah.
And there's also a PDF available, you know, online.
Sure.
You can just go to the website for that as well. The hard copy is good because it's a visual. You don't have to print it out. It has all the forms in it.
Yeah.
It's just much easier to follow, and that's what we would recommend. But
well, I did look online, and I looked at the PDF version, and it's essentially the same thing, but
yes,
and that's $5, right?
It's a donation. You can donate more if you want. But
yeah, sure. Well, the same thing with the book too. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I would strongly suggest that while supplies last,
yes,
that you head down to mailboxes, etc., and get this, because you know, I've been handed a lot of things over my 25-year history dealing with medical problems, and this is probably one of the easiest and most concise presentations that I've seen. Usually I'll go to 3 or 4 different doctors, hand you a pile of paper, and then you got to try to figure out what it is and then put it in some kind of order, and And this is
Well,
fantastic.
thank you, and thanks for all the people that helped us put it together and input it. Bev and Marjorie and I, we even took a tour of the funeral homes, Al.
Wow.
There's much more fun things to do in Boquete,
Well,
but you know
yes.
what? It was an adventure in Boquete.
You don't see that on TripAdvisor,
adventure in
do you?
Panama. No, here, yeah. And everything was okay until we got to one of the places that was actually doing a cremation. It was an experience, but you know what? We were able to verify the places, verify the phone numbers, and as of February 2020, the information is current and correct, but as you know, everyone knows things change and things, we have to be flexible and things like that. But I hope the people will give us feedback.
Yeah.
If there's something they see that's missing, please let us know, and we'll maybe if we ever revise it again, we'll do it again. And I'm sure we'll make more guides available.
Well,
and
it
have them
says
printed
right on
again.
there, revised February 2020, so you know that it's about as current as you can get. You know, interesting point. One of the first jobs I had out of college was in a crematorium.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes. The coroner brought down the body in the box, and it was my job to fire it up and
Oh,
and turn the gas on. Yeah.
thanks, Al, for that information.
Hey, you
That's
know,
good.
when you're
Thanks, Al.
trying to pay student loans back, a job that pays $30 an hour in the 70s was really hard to come by.
I should have stayed out of the big boys and just gone to the mortician for a job. Yeah, okay.
But anyway, I really want to thank you ladies for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Again, this book, Being Prepared in Boquete for Life and Death, is available for a donation minimum of $10. You know, but if you got more, well, by all means, it goes to a very good cause. At mailboxes, etc. Thank you again, and hopefully you all will come back when you have some more information, or maybe when you're doing the seminars again, eh?
Great. Thank you, Al.
All right, you've been listening to Boquete Now Talk Radio on Radio Cherokee 103.3 FM, sponsored by Big Daddy's Grill, Boulder 54, the Tap Out Sports Zone. I want to thank you all. Pasen buen día, mi amigos, mi amigas, familia, and I will see you, or at least talk to you next week.